Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aries, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of December 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Crow Tarot for you today. Before the reading begins, if it resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended you can access at the end. It's link number 1 in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please do feel free to avail yourself of that link. Right, Aries, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Can I have 3 cards for Aries, please? Well, there's the first one. We have the Magician. Lovely. In your recent past. We have, for your current energy, 3 of Pentacles in reverse. And what about what's coming towards? We have the 6 of Cups coming towards you. We do have the 6 of Wands at the bottom of the deck, which is pretty tasty as underlying themes for readings go. The 6 of Wands talks about victory and success, which hopefully, all things being good with you last month, you're starting to get a taste of, because well, it's not really any secret that it's been really hard for you, Aries. So we talked about this quite a bit last month. There have been all sorts of things that have the combined effect of which has acted like a protracted tower moment for you for 18 months, 2 years now. And we're finally reaching the end. We have reached the end, I think, of that particular cycle of difficulty. And there were green lights everywhere last month for what comes next for you. Whatever it is that you're wanting to invest yourself into. Like the message was very much go. And the 6 of Wands at the bottom of the deck is a nod to that. We've got the Magician over here. And actually, I want to pull some cards out before I start talking about that too much. Let's see what the clarifiers have to say about the Magician. Right, 9 of Pentacles and the Knight of Pentacles. Oh God, I'm not taking. There's far too many cards there. I'm not taking them all. But we have the 6 of Cups, Queen of Swords, the World card, and the 9 of Swords, which would speak to a certain amount of processing of the past that has been going on, right? Closing out the old cycle altogether, and not without an amount of mental discomfort, I would say, is probably likely. But let's try that one again. 3 of Pentacles. We have the Moon and we have the 2 of Cups. And what about the 6 of Cups for Aries, please? We have the 4 of Cups. And we have the 8 of Swords. I wouldn't worry too much about that on account of the fact that you have the 10 of Swords at the bottom of the deck. Now, the 10 of Swords represents yet another completion, another end. And it's possible that this might... There's a capacity here for this month to go one of 2 ways. And the way that it goes is entirely down to the way that you choose to deal with it and process the information that comes up this month, I think is probably the best way to put it. There is the potential for it to kind of knock you off your horse of victory, if you will. But I don't think many of you will end up going that way, since I wouldn't necessarily term what's happening here as a test, but there seems to be some unexpected twists and turns that are coming up. And I think probably, I'm recording this not too far into November, and already it looks like November's going to be a month of twists and turns and whatnot. Whether what comes out in December is how you process what has happened in the month before, or whether it's a whole new situation that you're being called to deal with, I'm not sure at this point. Hopefully by the end of the reading we'll have some clarity on that. But it's not straight sailing, it's not plain sailing. We're not necessarily going in a straight line here, and that's with specific regard to these cards that are showing up over here. But let's start on the other end. with the recent past, we have the Magician with the Nine of Pentacles and the Knight of Pentacles. And I like this for you so very much, Aries. Although the Magician represents strictly Gemini or Virgo because it's ruled by Mercury, I think it's safe to say that in this situation, like, you are the Magician. You know, the reason that this is either Virgo or Gemini is because both signs are ruled by Mercury. And Mercury has a lot to do with communication, but also intelligence. He's also a necropomp, so, you know, he's in charge of transporting people around to the underworld and things like that. And I think when you put all of these things together, we've got an emerging intelligence about an old cycle that has come to an end, right? And the mistakes that may or may not have been made by you or other people in that cycle. And a willingness to start applying that to more creative endeavors in front of you, right? The Magician card is a card of manifestation. It's about applying your will, for which you are famed, to all of the elements that you have at your disposal, to put them together in the right ratio to create something for yourself. And given, you know, what was coming up for you in November, it's not a surprise at all to me that we're seeing that Magician card there. When we have the Nine of Pentacles and the Knight of Pentacles supporting that energy, we've got a very good management of resources. And this is particularly important if you are planning to combine all the resources at your disposal to create something new. The Nine of Pentacles, for me, as all the nines are, is a card of managing something, right? In this case, it's managing resources. And your pentacles are not just your material resources, like your money or your assets or anything like that. They're your energetic resources too. The amount of attention and investment, the amount of attention, effort, love, all these sorts, anything that you have at your disposal to invest becomes a pentacle. And this is saying all the things that you have available to you to invest, you are now putting in the right places, where you may have been either distracted or spread very thin. And I think that would be true for a lot of Aries. It's spread very, very thin for several years now. There's a pulling everything back to you. Now, because the North Node is in your sign, and the North Node is very much concerned with the I am versus the we are at this point, it would make sense that a lot of things are being pulled back to you. Like there's almost an analytic quality. Oh, there's Mercury again, right? An analytic quality to where you have been investing for the longest time. And I think there's been, with the understanding and the intelligence that we associate with that mercurial energy of the Magician, the application of it to your life, right? I want to do something new. I want to create something new for myself. I do not want to be carrying around the burdens of the past. It's giving you a path to follow. Now, where you might have been intending to go, I honestly don't think at this point that many Aries have an exact goal in mind. I think that the turmoil of the last year or two is still too fresh for you to completely excise it from your mind and focus yourself entirely on going in one direction. We're still very much in the processing phase, but leaning much more towards what you could create rather than what has been lost or what has been destroyed or what has gone before. Still processing the lessons of it all. But the Knight of Pentacles gives us this sense that you are fully committed to this new path, one that puts you and your needs back where it should be, which is right at the center of your attention. But there's also this independence and autonomy is kind of coming back to you, which has been really quite notable in its absence as things have fallen away despite your best efforts. It's been very difficult to maintain a sense of control over your environment, and Aries likes to do that. But it's been replaced with control over you instead. You know, you controlling how you respond to things and all that sort of stuff. Yep, got the Page of Wands. We have got the initiation of a new way of doing things. Now, it's not wholehearted, jumping in feet first like we would see with the Fool. It's not launching yourself into the void, but it is the preparatory steps of taking where you need to go. Where the spanner gets thrown into the works a little bit, if we can put it that way, and it's not an entirely correct way to put it. I'm trying to feel around this to find the right way to do it. Nothing's going in a straight line. And that's important to notice. And it's not a reflection on you. More, it feels like there's a little bit more work to do on your immediate environment. There's been a lot of work that's been done on you, and now the work needs to go on your immediate environment, whether that is your material environment, your work, your home, any of those sorts of things, or whether it is the people that exist within that environment with you. Because we've got you taking baby steps towards whatever it is that you're wanting to manifest with the Page of Wands, right? Excuse me. And it's definitely burgeoning creativity, right? Almost like a return to hope. There is a possibility that I can do X, Y, and Z in the future. And starting to put the things in place for that to happen. Once we hit your present energy, we've got the Three of Pentacles in reverse, we've got the Moon, and we've got the Two of Cups. Now, this suggests that where there has been, at least on the face of it, cooperation and collaboration and teamwork and working together and all those kind of things, and I would say this is the people that you thought were in your team who were kind of rooting for you, where they've been kind of there for a little while, I do feel like we've got a pulling apart of some things. Now, these might be things that you have built with other people, or this might be the relationships upon which the building has occurred, right? The people that you've been doing the building with. Because the Moon card talks about things that are hidden, that need to come to light, but it also talks about what is going on in the deepest recesses of self. Now, seeing that it's coming up with the Two of Cups, there are two different routes that we can take here with that. The first is that because you are still in this processing phase, right, that is working out who you are and what you want and all that sort of stuff, that maybe there are some realizations that you come to about the way that you have been showing up in relationships that isn't, well, let's say it's not your best work, something like that, Aries, right, where you suddenly realize that maybe you've been a little bit engrossed in your own stuff and you've failed to notice things going on with other people, right? That's a possibility. But the other way of looking at it is it could well speak to those relationships that are around you that you thought were going to last forever, that it seems now in some way or another you have outgrown. Now, whether you have outgrown because these people have stayed the same and you have changed, which is entirely possible, or whether it is that you are realizing that there have been some motivations by other people that have been a little less than honorable. And in that moment of recognition, you're like, holy shit, why am I keeping myself in this environment with these people? This is not cool. I want to pull another couple of cards for that. Let's see if we can see which way it tips. What about the Moon and the Two of Cups, please? Oh, well, that was the Two of Cups again. The Moon and the Two of Cups. Got the Three of Wands. That's an Aries card. Ooh, and the Ten of Wands. With the Six of Cups, I'm going to just plonk that there for a second. We've got the Six of Cups at the bottom of the deck. Hopefully this will adjust in a minute. I'll stop being so washed out. I think it's somewhere possibly between the two. I don't think it's necessarily a realization that you have not been showing up well, although it could be some subtle insights into how your one-to-one relationships could be better with certain adjustments made by you in whatever way that resonates for you. But I think that you've come to the end of the road with not just one, but maybe it's a couple of different relationships. Now, these could be intimate sexual relationships, these could be spouses, these could be boyfriends, girlfriends, housemates, best friends, whatever. But it could be your wider circle. It could be other people who are a little less close to you. I mean, there's always an idea of intimacy somewhere when we've got the Two of Cups showing up. But it could also refer to business partners, people that you work with. Like I said, there's always this sense of intimacy, and it is an intimacy beyond what you share with most other people out there in the world on some level or other within your situation. Now, I think there's been a lot of effort that has gone into this here, and I think the effort has been yours, Aries. But I think you've suddenly realised, or you are in the process of realising, that there's a lot of work here and not very much in the way of reward. Now, whether you are entirely clear as to why that might be the case, I'm not sure. There's a suggestion for some of you that what has been operating as you thought as a relationship has actually been some sort of trauma bond. And that can be a very difficult realization to come to, because we only really see that when one person is ready to start healing out of that. And then by definition, you're kind of stuck in this place where you have to leave someone behind because you're just not at that, you're not vibrating at that frequency anymore. And they want you to stay where you are because they're not ready to heal yet, right? So there's that kind of stasis, that sort of stuckness. But the Six of Cups and the Two of Cups can also talk to a soulmate relationship that has perhaps run its course. People get very wrapped up in the romance of soulmate relationships, and I think they make things very difficult for themselves that way, and I include things like twin flame relationships and stuff like that because like most people don't really understand what the point of them is, and they highly romanticize them, But soulmate relationships are not there to just make you feel good, they're there to teach you something, and as such, even the really bad relationships that you have in your life, there's soul family there. But whichever way round it is for you, whether it's a good bond or whether it's one that's been actually really rather trying for you, the implication is that there's a realization here that it's run its course. There is no longer any more that this can teach you, and it is actually just becoming somewhat of a concrete block around your feet, where you're getting ready to be fleet of foot and start properly rebuilding your life again, Aries. Something else has to kind of come down first. But the fact that it's the Three of Pentacles in the reverse that we see, rather than something like the Death card or the Tower or something like that, is really adding some credibility to this feeling that I have that it is about you noticing what is not working for you in the here and now, and you being the one to pull this down. We've got that moon energy there that is pushing you to see what is currently unseen, unclear, slightly, obfuscated. And certainly to recognize what is going on within you in that situation, right? But everything that comes, everything that exists around that are the responses to the big energy that you are being called to make. So I don't think this is anybody walking out on you or any such thing like that. I think it's more increasing awareness, increasing insight that puts you in a place where you're like, I just don't actually think that I can keep going down this road with you any longer. I'm just not there. Like, this is not what I'm about anymore. Now, it's not as straightforward as a breakup, because if it were, the Two of Cups would be in the reverse, and it would be the main card here. Instead, the Two of Cups are in the upright, which already makes me feel like there's something really deep going on here with you, Aries. Then we've got the Moon, which is really pushing the deep aspect of this and the less obvious aspect of this. But if this card in its upright talks about coming together with people to create something, to build something that is going to last, then it's showing up in the reverse is an end to that, but it's also a pulling down of what has been built. Now, I think just a couple of months ago you would have resisted that, or you would have at least treated it as the latest iteration of the Tower to hit your life. Fucking hell, another thing that's broken down, another thing that's been taken away from me. But it's very subtly different in this case for you. And I think it's because you've had this intervening period of starting the process of putting your life back together, that you now see what it is that is being shown to you, and you understand that the exercise of autonomy in this situation, your own personal sovereignty and the control and all that kind of thing, comes down to this point here where something needs to come to an end. Now, you've got two very difficult tens here between the Ten of Swords and the Ten of Wands. The Ten of Swords does suggest that it isn't just that this situation is burdening you in some way, but there are uncomfortable truths that are being arrived at, right? That are forcing some sort of movement away from this, right? There's always discomfort when the Ten of Wands and the Ten of Swords appears, and the discomfort isn't necessarily the end. The end is possibly the release from the discomfort. But it's like being pushed to this state of discomfort so that you change something. And we've got that Six of Wands there that really does seem to be indicating that you're still winning. And it's really important that you understand that what's happening here is not a punishment of you. Rather, it's an opportunity to refine and do better the situation that you find yourself in right now, right? It's very current awareness of what is happening with you. Now, the reason that I say that this can go one of two ways for you in December is almost a mystery to me as much as anything, because the Six of Cups, the Four of Cups and the Eight of Swords would suggest anything but the opportunity to go either way. The Six of Cups talks about the past, and sometimes it can talk about a rather nostalgic view of the past. The Four of Cups, well, we know this card inside out. This is coming out for you a lot, Aries, this year. Abandonment issues, feeling rejected, doing the rejecting ahead of time, actually, just to make sure that you're not the one who's rejected, right? Well, all of these themes we see in the Four of Cups. And then the Eight of Swords, the absolute mental restriction. The thing is, for all the cards are there and they state it overtly that this is perhaps an energy that you might find yourself in, where you're like, holy fucking shit, I'm being triggered to shit with all of my old abandonment issues, and now I'm stuck and I don't know where I'm going, and maybe I'm hanging around a little too hard on this ending here. I feel like there's something highly redemptive that's just sitting here that isn't quite seen. And maybe it's the Six of Wands. Maybe the Six of Wands is the thing that's saying, actually, this loss isn't a loss. Like, this is a good thing. But I still do feel like you have a choice this month. Tell me about these cards here. You know that. Right, well, that was the Six of Pentacles that fell down there. So, right, we've got balancing. I mean, I feel like that's absolutely speaking to what I'm feeling here. So the cards that have come out are the Six of Pentacles, the Seven of Cups in the reverse, the Two of Pentacles in the reverse, and then the Star card at the bottom. Now, like I said, this can speak to balance being achieved or a balance needing to be achieved. I mean, it's important that, it isn't necessarily nailed down when we see this card. Sometimes it's like, well, you're going to have to do something to balance out your response to that. But I love the fact that we've got the Seven of Cups in reverse, because in the upright it talks about confusion and illusion and labouring under misapprehensions, not really knowing how you feel about something, knowing that something is wrong but not really knowing what to do about it. I mean, it's a card of an absolute lack of clarity. When it shows up in the reverse, as it has done for you here, we are talking about clarity being achieved. So we have balance being achieved, we have clarity being achieved, and we have a pulling away from this coping energy that has somewhat characterized your identity for a very long time. You know, one of the things that Aries, I don't think this is true of all fire signs actually, one of the things that fire signs pride themselves on is their ability to cope no matter what, right? Resilience is built into the DNA of fire signs. And even if there are points where you are afraid that actually maybe you're not coping, there's a really strong impetus in fire signs to make sure that nobody on the planet fucking sees that. Not having it, right? It's just, it's coping all the way. Yeah, things are shit, but like, I'm dealing, it's fine. This feels here to me like a refusal to even put on the mask of coping anymore. And that's not to say that you're not coping, but where you might have in the past allowed things to go a certain way because of this fear of being exposed to someone who is potentially not coping, and all of the corresponding difficulties that come emotionally and mentally from trying to take that position when it is incorrect. I think what you're doing instead is realizing that it's not your job to keep everything together. And we see this in your present energy. We're kind of like ready for you to start unpicking something that has been built. And in the last year or so, year or two, really, let's be clear. I do think it's been at least 18 months where things have been going wrong. When everything's been so chaotic, there's been very little to hold on to. So what has been there has probably been clutched at pretty fucking hard. But as you're starting to stabilize and as you're starting to grow, and certainly as you seem to be emerging from this very chaotic time into something much more capable, what has functioned as an anchor point to you up until this point is now available for unpicking. And I think rather than putting your coping head on and being like, right, well, it just is what it is and I'm going to deal with that, kind of like, no, this doesn't work for me. This is not cool. This is what I mean by the Two of Pentacles in reverse, because the mental restriction is that you have to deal with everything, whether that means you have to deal with all the things or whether you have to do all your stuff yourself, you know, whether you're doing everything for everybody else, whatnot. You just seem to have arrived at a place of such clarity where if this card were to try and turn that way up, it feels to me like you would go back into that space of mental restriction. You go back into that space of burden, back into that space of I must do these things because otherwise my abandonment issues are going to be triggered, or nobody else is going to do it, so I have to do it. Or maybe like your very own, safety and well-being depends on it. I know a lot of Aries had issues with the housing. And there's nothing more fucking terrifying than not having a place that you can rest, be peaceful. You're in a sanctum, that protective bubble around you from the rest of the world. But it came out reversed, which means you've learned some hella fucking big lessons in this last couple of years. And you refuse to be drawn back to this. Now, you can call this a test, or you can call it whatever you like. I don't really like referring to things as karmic tests, because it gives us this idea that you could fail it, and I don't think that that's what it's about. But sometimes the universe does send us situations that feel remarkably similar to something we've already endured, to see how we do things differently. So it's not that this is a trap, but what it is an opportunity to choose to do things one way, which might be your default way, we'll put it like that, or to choose to do something new. Now, one of the other things that's just occurred to me as I've been looking at these cards is that there is the possibility of a knee-jerk reaction to something. And it's really important to note that triggers, and I do feel that there's something very triggering about this Ten of Wands and Ten of Swords combination, and even this Moon and this Two of Cups here, triggers quite often will have us immediately reverting to a default method of behaviour, right? A knee-jerk response to something. The Six of Pentacles is a very slow, very measured, very grounded energy. And it's asking you to get in between you and any triggers that might go off this month, and recognise them for what they are. What they are is a method by which you catapult yourself back into the past. And the fact is, you've moved beyond this. So whatever your coping mechanisms are, and perhaps it's aggression, perhaps it's being directly confrontational about things. Maybe it's been about sweating the small stuff, when actually that's stuff you need to let go, and maybe the whole situation is just something that needs to be let go. Rather than trying to batter it into submission, taking a moment this month to look at where you're going rather than where you've been, because the Star and the Six of Wands there are saying you're going in a very good direction, but there's some messiness here that needs to be sorted out. Now, whether or not, I feel pretty strongly that it is. I feel like whatever's being unpicked here is also what is triggering this here. If you can see this for what it is and respond accordingly, this is just another opportunity to sort through more stuff, right? It's boring, we want to fire off to the future, but actually you kind of are doing that, because you're doing it by way of dismantling what would ordinarily send you back to an old pattern of behaviour. See it for what it is. Introduce that slower, more measured, frankly wiser perspective that you have now. Touch base with your feelings about stuff, and then let it go. Because what's happening here is a clearing of the decks. And I was talking to Capricorn about exactly that same thing, right? We're clearing things away that do not work for us anymore. But it seems to be extremely important that you do the clearing here. This is not for the universe to kind of boot this out at this point. It's for you to do it, and it's a way of demonstrating that you have learned what you need to learn. Now, if you leave this, untouched, just do what you would do by default, it seems to me exceedingly possible that in 6 months' time, whatever this situation is, will have a tower attached to it. Now, we don't want to bob and weave and duck towers. What we want to do is get to a place where we are wise enough to recognise that, left unchecked, this situation will be dealt with by the universe at a later point. And so we deal with it now rather than letting it go. And I do feel like that's what this situation is. Where does 6 months take us? It's going to take us into April, May time. And certainly into your solar return. And I think it's more important than ever that we make sure that we take care of business now. because things do feel like they are ramping up to get very, very difficult over the next few years. And so we are going to be the anchor points. Like, we are going to be the things that we rely on. And we need to make sure that we are doing that in the most healthy way possible. And whatever's not for you anymore, dismantle it, unpick it, process the feelings that go with it. But it's all about alleviating burden and alleviating stress, and recognizing that anything that sends you back into this old pattern of behavior is something that will lead inexorably to this, is a huge part of you embracing your future and your future successes, if we can put it like that. This is fascinating, Aries. I'm going to go and do the extended now. If you would like to join me, you're very welcome to do so. You can either do that on Vimeo or on Circle, either or, it's up to you. But if that's not your thing, no problem at all. I wouldn't expect things to be too linear this month. There's going to be movement side to side, and it's going to be quite testing at times. But you have a 100% hit rate of getting through everything that you've experienced. And after the last 2 years, I feel like the issue here is more psychological and emotional in here with you, rather than the reality of the situation that is outside of you, because it does seem to me very strongly that you have outgrown this situation and now you have to extricate yourself from it, if that makes sense, because that is what is pushing you towards your future. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.